here at the Blue Mountain Ski Resort to bring you an Inquiring Minds special report. Well, at least that's what I told Mike and Persis. Actually, we're here to ski and goof off, right, guys?
Right on, man.
But since we're here, we thought we could at least do a story on what else? Snow. But you know, not all the snow you see around me came from up there. A lot of it is man-made. So how does a ski resort make their own snow? And is natural snow different than this man-made stuff? Well, to understand how we can make our own snow, we first have to find out how Mother Nature makes the real kind. Let's start with this idea that water freezes at 0 degrees Celsius. Well, that's not completely true. You see, that's the temperature that water on the ground freezes into ice. But not all water is on the ground. There's also lots of tiny water droplets floating around in the air. And these droplets can remain liquid even when the temperature is well below freezing. But there's a catch. You see, water droplets in the air are like skiers on a hill. They're all spread out. But in cold temperatures, these droplets become very unstable. They can remain liquid as long as they don't hit anything, because the moment they collide with a particle of dust or dirt, they freeze into an ice crystal. These particles the droplets freeze around are called nucleators, because they provide the nucleus around which the ice crystals form. Now, normally you'd never see this process because it happens way up in the clouds. But there is one instance where it also happens down here on the ground. It's frost. Frost occurs when those supercooled water droplets bump into a cold surface on the ground and then freeze into an ice crystal. But the formation of an ice crystal is not the end of the snow story, because a tiny ice crystal is not a snowflake. Once an ice crystal forms, it becomes a nucleator for other droplets. Each collision produces a new crystal. And as more and more crystals join together, a snowflake slowly begins to take shape. So now we know how natural snow is produced, but how do you make your own snow? Well, the first thing you need is one of these, a snow gun. And how do these guns make snow? Well, they just try and imitate Mother Nature. Here's an example of your basic snow gun. So how does it work? Well, let's start with these two hoses feeding into the back. This top one carries compressed air, and the bottom one carries water. Now, if you were just to fire a regular stream of water into the air, you'd end up with rain, not snow. Remember, for ice crystals to form, you need those tiny droplets. So the first thing the gun has to do is break the water up into a fine mist. Now we need some nucleators for those droplets to freeze around. Well, luckily, the water feeding the guns usually comes from a lake or river that has lots of particles floating around in it that can act as nucleators. However, some resorts use a more high-tech approach. It's called Snowmax. It's a specially designed nucleator made from the skeletons of dead bacteria. By adding this mixture to their water supply, snowmakers can ensure that virtually every droplet formed at the gun has a particle to freeze to, which allows them to make more snow. The final component is the compressed air, and it serves a couple of functions. First, if you compress a gas, it heats up. But if you allow a compressed gas to expand, it cools down. So when the compressed air coming into the gun is allowed to expand here at the nozzle, it cools the water droplets and helps them to freeze faster. The other job of the compressed air is to throw the droplets up into the air so they have time to freeze into ice crystals. Now, the colder the air temperature, the faster the droplets freeze. That means you can send more water to the gun, and more water means more snow. Instead of compressed air, some snow guns use a large fan to fire the droplets into the air. But the goal remains the same. Give the droplets enough time to freeze into ice crystals before they hit the ground. And there lies the big difference between natural and man-made snow. An ice crystal that forms way up in the clouds may fall for several hours before it finally hits the ground. And that hang time allows it to collide with lots of other ice crystals and form a large, intricate snowflake. But the ice crystals formed by the snow gun are only in the air for a few seconds. Since they have less time to grow, the snowflakes made by the gun are much smaller than natural flakes. And if you look closely, you'll see that man-made snow looks a bit like crystals of sugar.
These smaller flakes also mean that man-made snow packs tighter together on the ground, which makes it much denser than natural snow.
Now, you've probably encountered some people who say they don't like skiing on man-made snow. Well, the funny thing is, in the long run, there isn't that much difference. You see, once natural snow hits the ground, it begins to change. As the snowflakes pile up on top of each other, the crystals become rounder and more tightly packed together, just like man-made snow.
In fact, ski resorts usually pack down their natural snow. This prevents it from blowing away and also makes it more solid to ski on.
But you can't go too far, because if you keep compacting snowflakes tighter and tighter together, you end up with ice. And in fact, years and years of snowflakes piling up and pushing down on the snow underneath until it finally turns to ice is exactly how a glacier is formed. Tom, watch out!
Tom, are you all right?